And so is David Bossie, the former deputy campaign manager for President Trump. He's also the president of Citizens United. We got a lot to talk to you about today, sir.
Absolutely, but I got to meet Charlie Daniels a moment ago. And
right.
That was an amazing thing.
The
highlight of my day.
He's got a great book that looks back at his illustrious career that ends up in the Hall of Fame. But you got to be outnumbered a little bit later. But David, today the president goes down to meet with the Republican senators about tax reform. This is going to be different. Some say what's going to be different about health care, where he was so optimistic? What's going to be different about tax reform?
Well, first of all, I think finally everyone in Washington understands how important it is to get tax reform done this year. Not next year, this year. Good policy makes good politics. And in a midterm, that's what these senators who are up for re-election are looking at. And I think that their constituents are telling them, let's get some of these big ticket items that you promised done, and let's do them now.
As far as the timeline's concerned, so the budget was passed in the Senate last week. The House is working on it. They say they're going to pass it Thursday. So that's done. We know they have to do that in order to get to tax reform. So then what's the time frame after that?
Well, we have until the end of the year, until December, to get this through the House and Senate. I would love to see it done very quickly, but let's make sure it's also right. So I think the president's concerned, and the White House wants to make sure that the tax cuts and the tax reform package, you saw the little kerfluffle the other day about the 401ks. Yep. You want to make sure you understand all of the policy and how it is going to affect everyone. I think the White House is going through the exact procedure they should be going through, and Mark Short and that team, Rick Dearborn and that team, and the legislative shop are working with the Hill every minute.
Well, if you're going to give the middle class a big tax cut, which is the president's intent, the money's got to come from somewhere. And right now, apparently, they're having trouble figuring out where the dough's coming from.
Well, I think that's always the problem when you're dealing with Washington. No one ever worries about where the money's coming from when they are spending like drunken sailors every day for the last 30 or 40 years and driving up our national debt. And all of a sudden, our economy is ready to grow at incredible rates. We're at 3% growth. The president came into office, and it was the new normal, right? Barack Obama had 1.2, 1.5% growth. That's stagnant. That's a stagnant economy. The president has, through his sheer force of his will, has done some amazing things with regulatory reform and other things to drive this economy and get it growing again. Unemployment's down. Our GDP is up. And if we can just infuse this money into our economy now, by next year, we're going to have 3.5%, 4% growth, and it's going to be generational change. And that's what the president wants.
He wants $1 trillion from another, like a 4% growth. That's what it'll bring in terms of revenue.
We'll grow ourselves out of this problem, just like President Reagan did. He grew us out of the problem, and that's what the president believes.
There's strong polling that shows that American people want to see something work bipartisan. And I'm wondering, David Bossie, if conservatives think the Alexander Murray health care patch for 2 years until they can reform it is something bipartisan Republicans get behind, because the word is Mitch McConnell says if the president wants me to, I will pass it.
Yeah, and I don't know where the White House is on the Murray bill at the moment, but I can tell you,
House doesn't like it.
Yeah, you're going to have problems trying to get that through with the sheer cost of it.
Yeah. Would you, if you're the president, do you go back in and try to get it to something you can do? Try to get rid of the mandates that he talked about over the weekend?
If I'm in the White House, I would be solely focused on tax reform. I would stay disciplined, stay focused on tax reform, because that victory will help you get other victories, whether it's on health care reform, whether it's on repealing and replacing, or any of the other big ticket items, whether it's the wall or anything else. Victories will get you more victories. I'd say focus on tax reform. The American people want it and deserve it, and I think they'll be ecstatic if they get it.
David, yesterday we were talking on this curvy couch about an investigation into John Podesta's brother, Tony Podesta. Turns out he's linked to Russia. We kept hearing from the Democrats saying this President Trump is linked to Russia, Russia, Russia. Turns out the Democrats might be linked to Russia. What do you make of this?
Well, we've known this for years. The Clintons, the Clinton Foundation, the money that they were receiving, Bill Clinton rolls into Russia a couple of weeks behind Hillary Clinton and picks up a $500,000 payday for one speech, I think 3 times his normal rate. The Clinton Foundation was getting money from God knows who. And we over the years, through our litigation, through our FOIA litigation, we uncovered some of this Russian activity, and that's where John Solomon got some of this material in the Hill. That reporting came from our litigation, not all of it, but a piece of it with the Russian investigation.
But with the Democrats, and now they're kind of in the hot seat with Tony Podesta, it was all about, with the Democrats regarding Donald Trump and his presidency, it was all about collusion. Now, as it turns out, it's all about corruption with the Democrats.
Right. There has never been one shred of evidence of the Trump campaign, which I was a part of, and collusion with the Russians. It was
the Jr. meeting looked terrible.
Okay, that's a bad optic of a meeting that may not have needed to happen, but that's not collusion. There's no evidence of any collusion whatsoever. And this here, I believe, raises the bar for what I call for an independent counsel. I think an independent counsel needs to take over this investigation. Look, Mr. Mueller can't bring this under
He was
the FBI director at the time.
And Rod Rosenstein, his number 2, he was right there, too.
That's right. When this was swept under the rug by the Department of Justice under Barack Obama, would not allow Congress to learn about it, would not allow the witness, the confidential witness, to testify to Congress, to let anyone know. There's something going on here, and it's very wrong. And an independent counsel, I believe,
so
the Attorney General.
Trust Mueller?
The Attorney General is a law and order man.
Robert Mueller?
I don't believe that you have an inherent conflict. When you were the FBI director, this took place under your watch. I believe, I'm not saying anything to besmirch him at all, but I believe that you have to have the American people believe it's an impartial investigation,
right.
and I think it has to be.
And the people he hired are big time, in many cases, are big time Democratic donors. But Hillary Clinton, when asked yesterday about these expanding ties on C-SPAN, she said Sean Hannity and his programs have been very critical of the Uranium One deal. She says, I would say it's the same baloney they've been peddling for years. There's been no credible evidence by anyone. Yes, there has. There's been your Uranium One deal. 20% of Uranium One was sold to Russia. What's her answer to that?
No one can answer that.
She's going to have to answer that, and that's why I think an independent counsel is the only way to get to the bottom of it. It's the only way for the American people to feel, yeah, we need another independent counsel, separate and apart from what's going on, because this one's closing down. I believe the Mueller investigation, maybe they have a couple of things that they're working on related to Paul Manafort and other things that have been in the news, but have nothing to do with the campaign. Yeah. Nothing to do with it. The fake news, and by the way, the mainstream media, the dishonest media, will not talk about these things.
Jimmy Carter is talking about it. Jimmy Carter says there's nothing there, that Donald Trump's election was about Barack Obama's ineffectiveness.
Right. Yeah, I'd never thought I would.
That sounds like David Bossie.
I never thought I would agree with the worst president ever in American history before Barack Obama, and now I do.
Well, David, it wasn't fake news yesterday on MSNBC. It was real news, and they accidentally proved why Donald Trump was right. We need a wall because, as the reporter was doing the report, there were 3 people jumped over it. Watch this. The real wall.
Can we cut through it? Can we scale over it?
What happened? The people are crossing. Almost on cue, a group of asylum seekers, migrants not from Mexico, jumped over the existing fence to turn themselves in to border agents on horseback.
It's like a small group of 3 people just jumped over in the middle of the day. Girl there with a pink backpack. Can you explain to me what's going on?
This is the reality of everyday border enforcement. Well, the United States is still the draw, the ultimate draw for people that have dire situations where they're at. We're going to continue to witness this. It plays out on a regular basis for us.
And it did just here, just now.
Just now, yeah.
You might as well have a trampoline on the other side. I mean, what's going on?
Look, MSNBC went down there to do one story, and they came away with another. The facts got in the way of their very good, dishonest story, and that's what this is about. Look, the president's right. We need a wall, and that's an exact reason why. A perfect example.
All right, talk about your op-ed today.
We had an op-ed yesterday on up on FoxNews.com
about the Senate
about the Senate,
the change that might be apparent that Bannon's kind of leading the charge on.
Well, that's right. Look, Steve Bannon is kind of the figurehead leader of this anti-establishment movement that's going on. I believe there's a lot of candidates that are out there that need to be supported, and my position is that if they get tax reform done, the temperature comes down on these primaries a lot. That's the problem with people in America right now, is they're frustrated with Washington. Washington has done nothing. They've promised, and have delivered very little. And the president's agenda is stalled in Congress, not in the White House, but in Congress. And that's why these senators are feeling the pressure. They're feeling pressure from challengers because they have been ineffective. And I think if they get tax reform done, it relieves
You'd
the
back
pressure.
Steve Bannon off?
Oh, I think, look, Steve Bannon is his own man, and I think Steve is going to do what Steve wants to do on these primaries. He's going to make some examples out of people, and to be honest with you, it's not a bad thing.
All right. You can check it out on foxnews.com. Thank you, David. Great to see you.
Thank you.